Okay, and thank you, Liz, for hitting the record button. Well, welcome everybody to our November 19th webinar with the Open for Anti-Racism Program 2021. And we are so excited to begin our webinar series with our guest speakers today, who are part of our leadership team here, our coaches from who were participants last year. I will be sharing action plans and project examples. So one of the main points of feedback that we received from our participants last year was, golly, we're developing these action plans and we're developing projects for our classrooms. It would be helpful to have more examples. So we thought the very best thing to do for our participants this year would be to share some examples of projects from last year. So here is our agenda for the day. We'll do a couple of quick introductions of some of us. Not all of you who are here, but we don't have time for that, unfortunately. But we'll do some quick introductions as a leadership team.
This
is an old agenda. This is a misplaced agenda, I think.
I just updated it in place. You're probably showing the old one. Sorry about that.
So, no problem. No problem. We are flexible. So we are going to share the action plans and have our guests share their action plans. That's what we're going to do. And then we'll talk about the some of the details of the calendar this year. And as always, thank you to the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation for supporting this work. And this is the right slide. Yes, this is the right slide. So quick introductions. Una, you want to say hello and remind everybody who you are?
Hello, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here this afternoon with all of you. And thank you for finishing up your paperwork. We're just about done with that. And also for getting involved in the course. I've been occasionally going in there to look at some of the great resources. And so pleased to have all of you on board with us for this entire year of the OFAR program. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Una. And I'm James Glop-Grossklag. My day job is as a dean at College of the Canyons, and I'm just thrilled and honored to be co-leading this project with Una. And Liz, one of our very essential team members. Do you want to say hello?
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see your faces and not just communicating over email about your paperwork.
So Liz is the one who does the paperwork and makes sure you get paid and get registered and everything. So absolutely key. And Joy, one of our course developers and facilitators.
Hi, everyone. Really great to be with you all in this synchronous space. It's so nice. I'm really grateful. I feel like very privileged to have had a few weeks with you all and getting to know you, but always really lovely to see everyone's face. And I'm really excited for the current participants to hear from our coaches and learn a little bit about their action plans and kind of see that these action plans can take on and look very differently. And that's what's so exciting, is that each of you have the opportunity to build something for your own courses. So I will stop at that.
Thank you, Joy. And then Kim Gruey is another one of our course developers and facilitators. And I don't see her here today. I think she's tending to her day job, which is as an instructional designer with Northern Virginia Community College, of course, on the East Coast, but she lives here in California. And then finally, Maritez Apijo, also I think is not here today, another one of our masterful course facilitators. She is full-time faculty and DE coordinator and OER coordinator at Contra Costa College up in the Bay Area. So we're all glad to see everybody here. And we'll go on to the next slide. Whoops. Just a reminder for everybody about the Community College Consortium for Open Educational Resources. We are a membership-based organization. We have members all over the country, including the California Community College's Chancellor's Office. So by default, your colleges are members, but you are also welcome to join CCC OER individually as a member directly, which College of the Canyons is always pleased to do. You'll see the mission of CCC OER here on the screen. And then without further ado, we'll go right into our speakers for the day. We have Deborah Crumpton, Professor of Business at Sacramento City College, Anna Garcia, Professor of Chemistry at Monterey Peninsula, Oliver Rosales, History Professor at Bakersfield, and Hasna Sadat Ahadi, Counseling Professor at Palomar, who is not with us live today because she has I don't know if I can say it. This is very close to her due date. So she thought better safe than sorry, and not have to cut out on the live session to head to the hospital.
And James, before we cut straight to the I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I didn't mean to.
Please.
Before we cut straight into the speakers, you were going
go
to
for it, Una.
tell everybody what an action plan template was, or maybe we should ask Joy to do that. But if you come to the next slide, because I think that
there we go. There we go. Yes.
Well, if you go back one, I think, yeah. I'm sorry. I think it was my responsibility, and I screwed up the slides today. So I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. So we have some information here about the action plan template, the culminating, which is the plan for your culminating project for the course. The plan should integrate OER, or probably should be an OER or open pedagogy approaches in order to make your teaching more anti-racist. And you've just finished the module on anti-racism, so you can see that's a pretty deep and broad topic. Pretty deep and broad approaches can be taken to that. So we encourage you to begin thinking about what that action plan will entail. In writing, you'll be asked to state your short-term goals and explain how you're going to achieve them. Focus again on OER or open pedagogy. Include a timeline for your plan. Try to ensure that the short-term plan is something that you can achieve within the spring term. But we do encourage you to think bigger, of course. What are you going to do next? And how will you assess the plan's success, right? That's what we always want to know is how is something working? What kinds of openly licensed artifacts, products, deliverables do you think will be coming out of that action plan? And we should point out that at the end of the program, we will ask you to upload or contribute the openly licensed materials that are related to your project, because part of the affordance of open licensing is that we get to share those works with others. And then, as I mentioned, share your long-term goals. Think about long-term goals. How can you scale up your ideas? How can you bring others at your college into sharing your ideas? And I'm sure our participants will share with you how their plans evolved over time, how perhaps their initial idea changed when they actually started thinking about how to implement something. And I do want to ask Joy very quickly, am I missing any key points that you're communicating in the course about the action plans?
No, James, I think that you covered it. And just quickly in the chat, Alan asked, or both. And I think Una had a really good response, which is that, open pedagogy certainly includes OER, but we don't want anyone to feel any sense of stress over how to incorporate both. The idea is that as we move through the course and through the learning, that it might spark some ideas for either incorporating OER or embracing OER, maybe remixing OER, or adopting some open pedagogical approaches. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Joy. Okay, now I'm going to say, without further ado, we're going to get to our speakers. And our first, sorry about this. Our first speaker is Deborah Crumpton from Sacramento City College. Deborah, shall I stop sharing and then you can share your screen?
Yeah, that would be great, James. Thank you.
Okay, so I think Liz has given you permission.
Okay. Hey, happy Friday, everyone, and happy last Friday before Thanksgiving. So not really sure how I should share my action plan, so I've done two things. I have both have my, let me see, I have my actual, I'll share this first. I don't know if you see this document?
we can see the document and the print's a little bit small.
Okay, so you can see this document.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't know, I don't think this is the most exciting way to share an action plan. So I have a different way of sharing, but I wanted to show this to say, I think this was the layout that was asked for, right? That you have an introduction to the action plan, and which is what I did here, and then my short-term goals that have in many aspects become long-range goals. I'll talk about that in a moment. And then I laid my action plan out by weeks. I happen to have been teaching at the time, and I am currently teaching right now 8-week courses. And so I laid my courses out by week with what I intended to do that week. And as you will see here, if you're looking through this thing, this was a bit ambitious. And and although I think I touched on almost every part of this, not to the extent that I wanted to. So let me share something a little bit differently that I think I can better communicate what I did. Okay, so let's see. I'm hoping that you now see my PowerPoint, and it says open.
Yes.
Okay, good. And so I approached this this entire opportunity from how can I help students develop more agency, because that's really my goal. How can I help students develop more knowledge, more confidence, and more tools to discover their own agency and their own voice? And doing that, how can I make my courses reflect the realities of these students, right? Students who are, for the most part, marginalized, not only in academia, but in their personal lives. And so, because I teach business courses, and business is among the most colonized of all disciplines, doesn't reflect these students here, right? And so when I started to put together my action plan, my thought was about stepping beyond what we typically do at my campus anyway and call equity, and really trying to make things anti-racist. So our bread and butter course in my department is our Introduction to Business course. We typically host over 13 sessions of this every semester. So we have a lot of students moving through this. And again, you already saw this action plan template, right? And so I embraced this template and started now to get busy. So these were my intentions, right? And now the course that you all are in, that's running for 6 weeks, ours ran for 4 weeks. And so when January was over, our semester had already started. And so now we're into February, and my intention was to integrate this between February and May. More than ambitious, for certain. But this was my goal. I number one wanted to get rid of my publisher's text. And I did that, which I'll talk about in a moment. But I also wanted to create non-disposable assignments and find ways of bringing student voice into helping to not only generate, but curate content. And so I did that by a couple of things. My assessment is also tied up in what I did, right? I was able to find a textbook that worked for the OER part. It was open, right? It's free, but it is colonized, right? It doesn't necessarily offer anything to students whose voices are traditionally omitted from text. And so there was much work to do there. I created some assignments around students bringing information in to this particular curriculum. For example, my students had an assignment called Finding Their Most Significant Minoritized Entrepreneur, who's most like them. But I didn't do anything with licensing that. And I will tell you that quite candidly, the reason I didn't is because my competency in that is still growing, right? I didn't feel that I had the bandwidth to lead students through that. But I led students through creating the content. And so that was good. So one of my next steps is licensing. But among the assignments that I created was this one about racism in marketing. And I created this assignment as a discussion forum because I wanted students to really rub up against each other as they would do in a classroom with different ideas and their many different experiences. And so I had students watch a couple of videos, and the videos were one was from a retail organization that talked about their approach. It was like 2 minutes long, their approach to diversity. Pretty vanilla, kind of what you'd hear from every organization. We're open, we embrace everyone. And then I had them listen to a video that was made by this Hispanic young man who was walking through a supermarket and picking up different products that were racially, that racialized language, like Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, right? And so the students watched these videos and they had to talk about each one of them. And the feedback, some of what you see here, was really interesting. Students felt uncomfortable for the most part, but grateful to have that conversation. Creating a safe space for students to really have a conversation about topics like this, I find it requires some heavy emotional, lifting from those of us who are trying to usher students through this. And also being aware of these kinds of outlier comments that I get still, right? In my most recent student review, for example, of a class that just ended, I had the same kind of comment from a white student who said, I don't know why, I don't even think racism should be part of a business class. And it's difficult for students like faculty, like administrators, to really embrace sometimes the racist slant that is in so many parts of everything that we do, particularly the disciplines that we teach. But putting non-disposable assignments into my curriculum became and has become really important. And that is a huge part of my action plan and something that I continue to promote and work on currently. So we were asked to talk about how did we scale up in our action plan, to talk about how you're going to scale up and share OFAR. And so department meetings were really important to me, but really my intention was to recruit more OFAR participants. I wanted to certainly let my colleagues at my college know about OFAR, which I did through a flex activity and speaking to the academic senate. But my real intention was to build interest in what OFAR can do for us as a campus community and what it can do for our disciplines. And so my intention was to really recruit OFAR participants. And I'm happy to say that I was successful in that. We had a team that is now part of this cohort. And I am hopeful that we're going to bring the community of anti-racism in a much larger, more meaningful way to Sac City. So that's my plan, and I'm happy to upload my PDF that has my actual plan written out if you're interested in seeing that. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Well, thank you so much, Deborah. Fantastic. I am so grateful to you for your transparency about the growth and the changes that occurred between the original vision and the actual implementation, and then what's ongoing. I think just for time's sake, I think we'll hold the questions to the end if that's okay. So remember your questions for Deborah. I think we'll probably be better served to take all the questions together at the end. So I'm going to pop back to sharing my screen to tell us that our next speaker is Ana Garcia, chemistry professor from Monterey Peninsula College. And Ana, I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and go back to you so that you can take over and take it away.
Thank you very much, guys. I am going to do just that. Should be pretty straightforward, I think. Thank you for having me. As Deborah said, we are very thankful for being part of this group. And as we think about being thankful next week, I needed to say that it's an honor to be here and to have a little bit of time with you today. So everything that Deborah just told you, I 100% agree. I have a little different approach to this today because I wanted to really give you the bad stuff. All the times I messed up, all my first action plans, I was a little, it was that bad. I copied and pasted because I wanted to show you how bad it looks. I'm be grateful for our instructors being so great, gracious with us the first week or two. So there was a spring this year, this was my short-term plan. So I do teach chemistry and geology classes, and I wanted to do something for both classes. I started from zero, and so I spent a lot of time working on the material, and I really didn't have a lot of time to create a lot of modules or doing something that I can do now, but I couldn't do then. And so I decided to figure out my goal, and my goal really was to add more representation to the material that my students were seeing, because I do have half of my classes are Latinx, a third of my chemistry classes are people from East Asia. There's plenty of wonderful diversity in my classes, but what we really using in the class is not even close. And so I decided to start with an extra point assignment. Again, I didn't infuse anything on my curriculum. I started really small. And basically I asked my students to figure out, find a scientist that they identified with, whoever that person was, alive or not. And then I gave them a template, like a Google Doc, where they had to add a picture and a source of information that was OER, and the accomplishments, but most importantly, the reflections on the scientist. And you don't have to read all that, but you can see how a little confused I was, and I was trying to see if I could maybe use the library, which I'm going to tell you right now, please use your library, because when you're trying to figure out how to do the proper citations on something, librarians are just fantastic. It's much easier to work with the students with them. So that was one thing that I wanted to do in spring. And the other thing that I wanted to do, as I come from Spain originally, I'm bilingual, I wanted to introduce more Spanish videos on my classes so my students would engage with me better in the material. So I want to tell you what it looks like, So that was my 1.0 outcome. So my students had this Google slide. That's the next example. Part of my students picked Miss Wilson. And so basically it's pretty simple. It's really, really simple. My idea was that they used OER material, so we could actually end up with a set of wonderful, very diverse scientists that I could share out. And I'm still working on that. So it's still ongoing. I'll tell you that in a second. So that was like my main thing last spring. I'm absolutely grateful that this actually worked out, pandemic and all. And I also wanted to show you what my long-term plan was. And this is rough as the short-term plan the first time I actually sent this. So I wanted to have this set of OER material to share out. I wanted to involve my students, my Spanish-speaking students in my videos, which I have not done yet. Identify one of my classes that needed an OER textbook. And so that's something that I wanted to do for the future. And like most of us, probably you will do that too, trying to share out with as many people as you can in your campus or not. So department meetings, division meetings, Senate, etc. So that was the plan, right? So I want to move forward right now, like this week, what's happening, right? What did I do? So the extra point assignment was a good start, little tiny one. But it was really telling the students that what I was trying to say was not important, right? It was extra, was not needed. So I have switched the extra assignment into an embedded weekly material for them for all my science courses. And this is kind of how it looks. So it's part of their first page in every single week. And I basically add here what my spring students did. So this is an open pedagogy, constant stream of students' work, so I do recycle that, which is fantastic. And I also added, I don't know, you can see here in the middle, both the introduction, the videos in English and in Spanish, properly captioned, etc. So that I'm trying to hook the Latinx students that I have. So that was some work, but it's working out in full just fine. I also wanted to say that I have definitely got rid of the extra points. This all has to be part of the curriculum. I did find that OER book in Geology 9 that I'm using in spring. So I'm fully OER right now, certified. There's some talk on campus to add more science courses that are totally bilingual. So I'm going to be part of that. So I'm really excited about that being happening in the next year or so. I did share the OFAR work, that's how I call it, with everybody I could, every single person I talked to for the last year. And we have a local task I'm part of. It's called Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, and Anti-Racism. The acronym is IDEA, is probably not new for you. And basically I lead an exhibit every year that merges art and science. It's called STEAM. And I just want to show you how it looks. It's ongoing right now. We celebrate this in November. And so I did a couple of things here. Translated Spanish and English. I have added OFAR as our theme, inspiration theme. I hope we all ended up with an OFAR something one day. And this is me here. We had a wonderful guest speaker. If you don't know Dr. Raven, please click that link and just enjoy. It's pure enjoyment. It's an OFAR speaker. We should have her with us here. Totally recommended. And then here's all the students' work on here. It's a live guide. So like what I said, use your librarian, right? And so I just want to show you, my students actually had a piece. We call it You Are Fantastic. And they did this. So what I showed you before, it looks like this now. So they thought about the scientists, and they also thought about what is the word that I would use to describe that person. If you close your eyes, you couldn't really see, right? And imagine that all of them ended up with the same words, no matter what they look like, right? That's fantastic. So this is the final piece, how it looks. I'm so proud of them. It's all OER, just that took a while. It looks pretty sleek, in my opinion. And, I hope they win. I'm just gonna say it, we'll see. It's open all month. So I wanted a couple more things for you, and I'm done here. One is, that is a thinking outside the box type of thing. I don't know if this is, at the beginning, I was thinking about what can I do with my classes, but then I realized, wait a second, there's always so much more I can do. I can reach a lot more people in all sorts of ways. It seems like this outside the box type of thing, it's very natural for me. So I'm part of this. I just wanted to show you this, maybe a way for you to do something. The other activity I wanted to share with you, called the activity, is that 2 weeks ago, I organized a day, basically it's a field trip. It's a science pilot. We went kayaking. And what I wanted to share is that out of the 17 students, were all 100% chosen as an OFAR peace of mind. So we had students from ARC, which is our disability group. We had people from EOPS, we had Umoja, we had El Centro, which is a HSI, we had dual enrollment, etc. So to see all these smiling faces, I'm so proud of them. They had a really good time. This was an OFAR field trip. And again, the thinking outside the box somehow works for me just fine. So these long-term plans, I'm just thinking about what else I can do to reach out more people than my classes. Okay, I think we have one more. So final tips. I wrote this like if I was talking to myself. So I had a lot of commitments and I was very aware of not a lot of time. So if you start small, that's okay. And that's how I started. I think it's perfectly fine. Sometimes trying to do too much ends up being not good. Know your students. Some of my students, the majors, had a little different approach to what I was doing than the non-majors. So know your groups, that will be useful. Use your library for sure. And please use open pedagogy. I know we are OER, but God, open pedagogy is just the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. I'm totally in love with this. And then ask for help, right? When you need it, because we all will. So yeah, that's it.
Wow.
Thank you for your time.
Anna, thank you. Holy cow. Great stuff. Thank you. The field trip, it's just so awe-inspiring to see how you have integrated your learning and your creation with your students into other aspects of your professional life outside of your immediate classroom. Really inspiring. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Wow. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go back to my screen, share my screen, and let us know that our next presenter will be Oliver Rosales, Professor of History at Bakersfield College. And we do also have a Bakersfield team this year, just as Deborah inspired a Sacramento City College team. Oliver inspired a Bakersfield team, I think. So Oliver, take it away.
Thanks, James. I'm going to try and share my screen here. Forgive me for not turning on my camera at the moment. I'm just trying to make sure I have enough bandwidth for all the stuff that I'm trying to share. And I promise I will keep time as well. Thanks to Deborah and Anna. Those are awesome presentations. It's so much fun to see how your projects have evolved over time. I too was kind of like digging around, trying to find artifacts from my time with OFAR. It seems like the last year was a blur. I did come across this and I was like, oh yeah, so what's written in black is basically my action plan, and then the track changes are notes that I made over the course of, I guess it would be the 3 or 4 months, after the action plan was submitted at the end of the course. And so just kind of gives you a sense of how I tracked my my work or whatnot. And I do a lot of like grant writing stuff. So like to me, I'm very, I don't know, kind of linear thinker. So, dates, action, and notes in terms of who are the stakeholders or persons that are pushing a project, that was helpful to me. But I would say, like Deborah and Anna are talking about, my project definitely narrowed over time. And so that's what I want to kind of just talk a little bit about, is what the genesis was and how it narrowed. So in a nutshell, I'm a historian, and so I'm very interested in oral history, family history, and open pedagogy. And I had been doing some of that, prior to coming to OFAR, and basically trying to get my students to do family interviews and to work with historical artifacts within the home to tell history. And the idea, as it relates to like anti-racism, is that people of color and migrant peoples especially have been excluded from traditional archives historically, right? The historical discipline is very biased, and so the populations that I deal with, they don't see themselves in the record. And so prior to coming to OFAR, I would do oral histories or family histories, but it just kind of like ended in the classroom. It was disposable, like Deborah was saying. And so that's why I was really attracted to OFAR, because it got me thinking about, how could I do something that has a life beyond, my classroom? So I'm going to push minus on that. And I'll share very briefly something that I'm still very proud of that also dovetailed this work. So, during the pandemic, my campus hosted a virtual exhibit from the Smithsonian Museum. And right during the OFAR experience, I had to basically go after funding in order to make this a virtual museum that we still hold to this day at Bakersfield College. And we can basically kind of hold it in perpetuity as long as we pay a very small institutional subscription fee. And so my students can go browse around, this museum. They have like embedded videos and like PDFs. And what was also cool is that we were able to embed some testimonials. And so we have Omar Gonzalez, who's actually a member of this cohort, and then several students who, whose lives have been impacted by agricultural labor. And they told their own stories in both English and Spanish. And this was really powerful. We shared it with the Smithsonian at some national forums, and they were all really loving it, right? So this kind of influenced my thinking about what I was going to do in OFAR, because I was putting a lot of effort into this particular project, as OFAR was essentially happening. Now, the other thing I want to share briefly is like, I do have a Google site for my California history course, which is sort of where a lot of the energy was focused for OFAR. And, this site I had no idea how to create a Google site. Our institutional technology people did this for me. But over time, I've learned how to manage it and how to add content. And so basically the process that I have for helping to preserve the stuff to make it non-disposable, there's the process that students can kind of go through with, releasing the material, and like if they want to do an oral history or they want to donate stuff. And so like now that I have had a few semesters of doing the work, I'm able to curate some of the better quality submissions that I get from students, which are multiracial students, multicultural students, interviewing their family members, and then editing and going through the Creative Commons licensing with YouTube, so I can basically kind of share out things with the public. And it's not just YouTube videos, but again, people sometimes do recorded PowerPoints, or they do like video or photography narration, right? And everything is sort of under the Commons, right? So this had been going on prior to my OFAR experience, but then again was enhanced through OFAR. So that was a kind of deliverable that I focused on. And I'm not going to play this, but I wanted to share one other thing, and I'll talk about ArcGIS in the next few minutes I have. So this is like a module implementation, and I'm not going to play this other than just like show you really quickly something. Like this is a 3-minute video I did for my students in terms of recruiting archival materials. And so this is really what my OFAR work focused on, which was using ArcGIS technology. And so I developed a survey that students could take and then basically contribute information that that become like mass aggregated. And so I'm going to push play really quickly. And if there's no audio, that's okay. I don't know if people can hear the audio. Represented geospatially. Oh, okay, cool. So I'll let it play for a second. You can access the GIS survey here, and I'll just walk you through it. It's a series. I don't normally talk that loud. It was on 1.5. And again, it helps me gather data to visualize migration and family history stories at BC. So you enter your name, your email, and here, you could describe very briefly in less than 200 words, if you decided to interview a family or a friend for the oral history project we did this summer. And then here you can represent it spatially. So, for example, if the person you interviewed came from a certain place, or if you interviewed a family member, where did they come from? So like, for example, like my family's history stems from Chihuahua, Mexico. So I would put Chihuahua here in the address, and it basically gives a ping there, right? So, you have to think about the person that you interviewed, or, if you want to fill out the survey thinking about your own family's background, that's totally fine too. But I think the key thing is to try to, trace your family's origins, right? Particularly if it's from outside California. And then this is the fun part. Like if you have a photograph, family photograph, a memento, something in your house that you think represents, your family's story, or again, if you did an interview with a close family friend, maybe they could provide you a photo that you think visualizes their story. You can upload it into the system here. And finally, there's a close question that says, do you think that family oral history is important for examining Latino history? Now, when all of that is said and done, what happens, which is really neat, is all of that data becomes aggregated, right? And so this is just a sample of a map that I'm working with. This would show you data that was gathered over the spring from my students, and you can see where some of their family origin stories lie. You can see that a lot of the students have family origins in Western Mexico, but there's some, again, from like, Texas, some that are from the Kern County area. And like each dot represents like a student. And, if you click on the dot, what happens is it pulls up the data related to the student. And, it also has, the photographs that they loaded and whatnot. So it's very cool. So I'll stop right there and just again reiterate that this is where the data is storehoused. And as I implement the project in various courses, all of it kind of is funneled into ArcGIS. And that's not it's a storehouse, but then you can create a story map. And so that's kind of what, what Deborah and Anna were talking about, like the things that you're still working on. I'm still in this process of like gathering data, and then I can showcase it publicly using a story map that can basically be exported like into like a website. So for example, I had open earlier and I know I'm approaching my last 2 minutes here. I had this website open. I don't know if maybe I closed it, but the Google site, basically ArcGIS can interface with Google site, and it can embed, you can embed surveys from ArcGIS into Canvas. And so that's kind of what I'm doing now. The final thing I just want to close with and just make the huge pitch about what I'm trying to do institutionally is to get Bakersfield College to adopt an ArcGIS institutional subscription. I've been relying upon my university, the feeder university, CSU Bakersfield, to use ArcGIS primarily. There are several ArcGIS features that are totally free, but ArcGIS, Esri, they have very modest institutional subscriptions. And so if your community college is interested, you might want to check with your IT department about getting access to it. What you're looking at right here is totally free. You can go to ArcGIS, sign up for it free and get some of the 2020 census data. So this is like a racial population density map for California. And, mostly I work with, Bakersfield and the San Joaquin Valley, and the pink is the Hispanic populations. I mostly teach in the rural, right? So I'm trying to design a curriculum that really targets the Hispanic student population. But there's also a lot of racial segregation. So, I'll close with just saying with radical archiving, I want students to see themselves geospatially, right? And to be able to produce artifacts that can then be overlaid as a data layer within maps. That is what I'm absolutely working on right now. And it's totally open and can be, licensed under the CC. So I think I'll stop now. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Oliver. As a fellow historian, I'm just so envious and excited to see that those tools are available and you're utilizing those tools. But I can also imagine for so many other disciplines, there are a lot of wheels churning right now with ArcGIS and with your example. So thank you for that. So finally, our final presenter is Hasna Sadat Ahadi, who is expecting any day now. So she is not here live, but she recorded a video for us. So I'm going to stop sharing. And Liz, I think you have that video queued up. Thank you very much. And Hasna will share via video her action plan, her project. Oops, no audio, Liz.
Hold on. It didn't give me that option for some reason. Let's see.
When you share your screen, Liz, there's a thing you got to check box. There's a checkbox in the share screen window. I've forgotten what it's called. Let me see if I can see that. It's share sound, and if you click that, you'll be good.
I think I got it. Let's try this again.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hasna Sadat Ahadi, and I'm an assistant professor in counseling at Palomar College in North County of San Diego. My pronouns are she, her, ella.
Sorry, I'm not sure what happened there.
Is it a bandwidth issue? Maybe refresh.
Well, it is also linked to the slides, which we'll share shortly in case we can't play it.
Yeah, plan B.
Hello, everyone. My name is Hasna Sadat Ahadi, and I'm an assistant professor in counseling at Palomar College in North County of San Diego. My pronouns are she, her, ella. I would like to make a land acknowledgement and recognize that I, in North County of San Diego, is blessed to be on the land of the Liseño, Kumayay, Cupeño, and Cuyala people. I encourage you all to learn about the land you're on and continue to make land acknowledgements with statements and actions to support the Indigenous and Native communities in the past, present, and future. The course I taught while being in the inaugural OFAR cohort was Counseling 110, College Success, which is a multicultural course that provides students with skills and knowledge of multiculturalism to meet their educational and personal goals. I really wanted to transform my entire course and endeavor to get as much of the goals I listed on my action plan. I started off with decolonizing my syllabus and used my own research to taking these necessary steps. To me, decolonization is about dismantling colonial ideologies, racial hierarchy, and hegemony in my courses. This includes eradicating punitive language, being flexible with students submitting their assignments, and creating a validating and welcoming environment for students. I noticed when my course turned into a zero textbook cost last year, my enrollment went up. This allowed me to reflect on the vast amount of students who are socioeconomically disadvantaged and the importance of alleviating financial barriers for them. I ensured all my materials met ADA compliance and accommodations were met for all student abilities. I had students review my college's pronoun guide and input their pronoun on Canvas. I was intentional with including multiracial authors and presenters when it comes to articles, TED Talks, and more. I had my students complete 3 surveys in my course and the RP group survey as well. Conducting surveys allowed me to gather both qualitative and quantitative responses from my students to see what worked and didn't work in the modules, their contribution to the curriculum, and learning about their lived experiences. During the first week, students co-created community agreements, and each week they used these agreements when providing feedback in discussion posts and group work. By having students complete an informational survey, I ensure to include students' cultural identity and practices throughout my teaching curriculum. This fall 2021 semester, I began working on the final steps of my action plan, which, by the way, should be a continuous process and practice for educators who are more and more critical conscious of the inequities our students are confronted with. I began incorporating the universal design for learning, grading for equity. After reading Joe Feldman's book, I have eradicated omnios grading and now use a 5-point system. What should be considered today are diverse equity groups and the lived experiences and perspectives our students contribute to the teaching and learning process in our classrooms. The standardized A through F and curve grading stems from colonial practices. Thus, grading systems create student ranking and therefore disempower and demotivate students to feel less than their peers. I've also began co-creating equity-minded rubric with my students. I have introduced a global perspective of scholarship to the counseling discipline. And most importantly, I have committed to change the course outline of record for counseling courses at my college to have a social justice and racial equity perspective. I would like to end by sharing a text message I received from my colleague this week, who checks in with my formerly incarcerated students weekly about their experiences on campus and in my courses. Your students are really moved by your course content. It's an eye-opener for them. You are helping to transform active white supremacist gang members into social justice warriors. This was the most impactful feedback I have received in the 12 years of my teaching. I wanted to thank OFAR for giving me the tools to transform my teaching so I can create greater liberation in my classroom and in the community. We are all here to support you as you create your action plans this year. Good luck.
Holy smokes. It's, you know, at some level, we were hoping to share the act, have our 4 participants from last year who are coaches this year, Hasna, Oliver, Anna, and Deborah, share their action plans and their processes with you to lower the threshold and make it a little bit more approachable for you. But boy, these guys, they're just all superstars, and I'm feeling mighty inferior if I think about doing anything in my professional practice compared to these 4. So hopefully we have not had the opposite of the intended effect on you, and hopefully this is inspiring to you rather than just overwhelming, because their work is just so incredible. So I am going to move on. I'll do this next slide, and then we'll turn it over to all of you for just a couple of minutes of questions or comments. A reminder that we have that last year, towards the end of the program, all of our participants, because we had a much smaller group last year, they all presented via Zoom, and we recorded it. They all presented their projects. So there is a record of all of their videos on our website. You can see the URL here. So if you want to go peek at those as well, you can see everybody else's presentation from the end of the year last year. What I really do appreciate though about Deborah, Anna, Oliver, and Hasna is how they have shared with us how their projects have evolved over time and had a greater impact on their campuses and in their communities. So really great stuff. With that, let's pause for just a second. I'll turn it over to all of you. Do you have any questions for our wonderful presenters here, but being conscious of the time? Questions, comments? Just go ahead and feel free to unmute.
I had a quick question. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah. So I had asked this after the first presentation, but it really just applies to all of you guys that have gone through this. Is, you know, what sort of reception did you get from colleagues that were both in and out of your departments and disciplines? I can imagine there was probably a huge mix, but I have, you know, I'm anticipating some of my colleagues already pushing back against some of this stuff. Like I had a colleague a few weeks ago tell me that anything that was anti-racist was racist, you know? So it's like, I didn't even know where to start with that, except I just let it go. I said, okay, well, I'll just do what I'm going to do and use that as an example. but I just wanted to get some feedback maybe from you all and see how this was received and that sort of thing.
Please, any of our presenters want to address that?
I can address it really briefly. I mean, you have to know what you're talking about when you talk about anti-racism. I mean, the resources in the module are very comprehensive, and you're not going to digest it all in a week. I don't think you'll digest it all in 4 or 6 weeks. So just keep returning to these things. Some of the module content will have you'll dive really deep on it, and just be well versed in what you do. And we're in the business of educating students, and I can use that whole business efficiency model that administration loves, and anti-racism pedagogy helps us achieve those outcomes, period. Like that, and all the modules support that. So by referencing that scholarship, I think it's going to enhance your ability to deal with, difficult colleagues.
I guess I would add to what Oliver said by offering this. You have to know your campus, and then it depends on your position on your campus, right? And I mean, all of us are starting from wherever we are. When I entered this work, I had been doing a lot of work on my campus. So for me to talk about anti-racism was not unusual. And, my colleagues expected to hear that. And those who had been giving me pushback over the years, I mean, we've dealt with that. Not saying that there isn't that anymore, right? So, and I look at it like this too. I'm not responsible for how other people receive this. I'm responsible for how I deliver it. And I recognize that there's always going to be that, but that's not my work. And so I would just encourage you to stay in your work, do what Oliver says, which is, continue to get invested in it, and to just approach it with compassion and courage.
And I think in some ways I can kind of echo some of Alan's issues, because I've got colleagues in my discipline who see the course outliner record as the Bible, and we don't change it for much of anything unless it is required to keep our courses in line with the CSU and UC transfer requirements. So I see it more, at least in my discipline, as a subtle pushback to some of this. And so a couple of you have talked about making the changes to your CORs, and I may be reaching out to you as we pursue this, because I see that as another area of pushback from some of our faculty as we try to make these changes as we go forward.
Terrific. Thank you, Alan, for that great question. Great question. I think we have time for one more question and a brief answer. Anybody have one more question? Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm going to go back to the slide, share screen again. Sorry to make everybody dizzy with sharing the slide so many times here. So I'm going to turn this over to Una to talk a little bit about the calendar for the rest of the year. We've got some great things coming up.
Thank you, James. And yeah, thanks for that quick conversation. And I know more dialogue will be coming in 2 weeks. But this is actually about the January. So January is a special month for us. We hope most of you won't be full teaching at that point, or at least till the very end of the month, because we've got some great workshops coming up. And also you'll be meeting with your peer groups starting in January on that, twice a month basis as you and your team work that out with your coach. But on January 14th, I think I sent this out a couple of weeks ago, we will have a workshop on the importance of creating a sense of belonging for your students, particularly for underrepresented students. And we have a expert in the field coming in to talk with us about that. And looking at your syllabus will be a major focus, and how you can start there to make changes. And then there's going to be some workshops, some optional workshops from, and I forgot about the January 21st one. We've been talking about open licensing and uploading materials. So we're going to have some experts, the actual folks that run OER Commons are going to come and talk to us on the 21st of January. And these are all on Friday at noon. they'll be explaining how you upload materials and all that great stuff. So we're really thrilled to have them come as well. And then I think we should go on to the next slide. There are some great January optional workshops that Joy and her team are going to offer.
Sure. Well, I can talk about those.
There's
or
Joy.
Joy.
Either one. Well, sure. I'm happy to share. So at College of the Canyons, we do have a small team of employees, former students and current students who work with helping our faculty develop OER, find resources. So what we wanted to offer to each of you is, we'll be finished with the course at this point, but you might be wondering how you can either adopt OER or perhaps work with OER as you move towards implementing your plan. So our team at College of the Canyons will be available to host some workshops, starting with OER search. So basically we're offering each workshop twice, once at like 12 noon and then the following week at 4 p.m. So we're hoping that if you're interested in any of these topics, there are 2 opportunities to join the team, but they will be helping you with where to search for OER. The following topic is open licensing. There might be some questions that arise in terms of how to openly license your work if you choose to do so. The next topic is demystifying remix. So one of the concepts that of OER and that we are kind of exploring this week is, I think Deborah shared with us, she adopted OER, but it was in no way decolonized. It was free, it was openly licensed, but it in no way exhibited any aspects of anti-racism. So there are opportunities, and the open license allows us to add content, kind of move stuff around if we want. And that might sound like a challenging process, but it's not, I promise. So the team will be here to kind of help explain what that looks like. And then the final topic is all about attribution. So learning how to properly attribute anything that's openly licensed. So the team will be here. You will have resources available to you if you have any questions about how to move forward if you choose to with OER.
Great. Thank you, Joy. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
and then this is a little bit of a broader or a different view of what we were just talking about, including
pumpkin.
Go ahead, Una.
Including pumpkins. Yeah, sorry. This is just letting you know about the webinar that's coming up in 2 weeks on December 3rd. And I did want to mention that one is we're going to kind of roll out the calendar for you at that one. And there's also going to be an opportunity to work with, for teams and coaches to work together. We're going to have some breakout rooms to support that. So that once again is another heavily suggested required webinar for you to join us, because I believe the teams are going to decide that week, or if they can, about their upcoming meetings in the new year. And so we're looking forward to supporting that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, and then again, we'll have the full calendar rolled out for you at that time. As you can see, it's evolving, and we're still working on some of the details, but I think we've got a great program in the spring worked out for you. As a reminder, you can find all of the resources from year 1 at the CCC OER website, linked there on the screen. That includes all of the year 1 webinars with our guest speakers. You can find those at the bit.ly there. And then, as was previously mentioned, the project showcases by last year's participants, sharing out what their projects were from last year, which are really amazing. You had a taste of it today with our superstar participants, now coaches. A reminder about communications: if you have project related communications, you should all be added to the overall OFAR Google group or Google email. Liz, thank goodness, is the one to help you with contracts and then ultimately with invoicing. when it's time for payments. As Joy just described, we are available at College of the Canyons with our small but mighty team to help you with some of the nuts and bolts. In addition to those workshops, you're welcome to email us. And then other programmatic questions, you can contact Una or me. Copy both of us is probably the best thing to do. That will ensure a timely response. And with that, a couple of tips for learning about open education, but you got way more on open education in the course right now, and you're in the OER module, so read that stuff. That's way more in depth than these high level tips here. And with that, we'll turn it back to you. We got minus 2 minutes. We're 2 minutes over, but any final questions, pressing questions, or comments? Good, Alan. I'm glad to hear that the modules are sparking some good conversations there. I will just echo what Oliver said about the value of knowing the literature. What you're reading in the course or what you're viewing in the course is grounded in the scholarship and the research. So it's really useful to arm yourselves with that, right? Many of us come to this work from our hearts, and we are also in the academy, which deals in rationality, and we hope deals in rationality, and we hope deals with evidence. So arming ourselves with the real scholarship, the real literature, can certainly be helpful. Okay, and for the order.
Yeah, thanks so much to our coaches who came today.